All right, good afternoon, everybody. Today is January 21st, 2021. I'm Royce Fletcher Thomason, and we're here today for another Wednesday Hope and Healing Hour. So, something that's actually interesting about today is that today's date is actually a palindrome. A palindrome is a name or a number that is the same thing, whether forwards or backwards. So today's date, January 20th, 2021, regardless of which way you put it, it's the same number. I'll show you that on the screen real quickly. See, it's the same whether you look at it forward or backwards. 1/20/2021, it's the same going forwards and backwards. Now, the interesting thing about it is not only is today a palindrome, but the next today is the first of 10 consecutive days that are palindromes. Okay, so what's interesting about that? I'll give you another example here. What's interesting about that is that it's interesting in terms of this particular time we're in. Hey there, Trisha C. Good to see you as always. So today today and for 10 consecutive days, they're palindromes. So what that means is that whether you look at the number forwards or backwards, the number is exactly the same. Okay. Today, tomorrow, the next several days after that on through next Friday. Every day from today through next Friday is a palindrome. Now it's interesting. And a dear friend brought this up to my attention about today being a palindrome. Now it's interesting to me because there are a couple things that are going on that I find it interesting. At least today is Inauguration Day in the United States. In fact, the new president and vice president were just inaugurated just actually a few minutes ago, within the last hour. They were inaugurated. This day happens to fall on a Wednesday. It's interesting because something that is said to me in the midst of all of this is that there is a balancing out of energies. Wednesday is the day right dead smack in the middle of the week, and it starts off this palindrome. There won't be another for a long time. There won't be another date after these 10 days. It's rare to have one, but to have 10 consecutive days, it's really odd. It only happens in years that actually end with 11 or 21. Those are the only times you can have a date that's a palindrome. So it's really interesting because that's pointing to a balance, from my perspective, a divine balance. Numbers are in terms of written languages, numbers are the one universal language. And there's value and significance, I believe, in numbers and how they're arranged and dates and things of that nature in terms of the unfolding of the cosmic scheme of things. I find that quite interesting personally. The fact that this is taking place at a time where it's really interesting going on. Another thing that I've mentioned before, 2021 is a 5-year, it's a year of change. It's a year of change. I believe the change is in such a way that things are being balanced out, being balanced out, and hopefully, and I believe in a harmonious way in terms of the greater scheme of things for us all. All right. We have experienced definitely a period of time where there's been a lot of difficulty. Last year, there were a lot of difficulties that we faced. There have been difficulties that have been present this year too, and there are always different challenges that present themselves. But I really do believe that this date was established a long time ago, 1/20/2021, and that palindrome, that perfect balancing of numbers, where it's the same thing whether you play it forward or whether you play it in reverse. That divine balance had already been set in motion before we started going through the things that we were going through last year, few years before that, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. All of those things were already put in motion, and they were already taken care of. Yes, in this experience as human beings living on planet Earth, we have some stuff that comes up that's not always easy to deal with. It's not always comfortable to deal with. It's sometimes gut-wrenching. We have, as part of just this human condition, we have things that we struggle with. That we struggle with in our own individual lives, in our individual relationships, in the larger scheme of things. For the better part of the last year, we've, as a planet, all been struggling with things connected to this pandemic and such. But the reality is that no matter how dark things get, no matter how bleak things might get, no matter how trying things might get, no matter how separate we might seem, no matter how much fear might come up, no matter how much hatred might arise, behind all of that, in the background of all of that, is still the grace and the love of God at work. There's still a greater harmony that's unfolding even in the midst of it. And in reality, the harmony is actually always there, right? Things might appear to be a certain way on the surface, and the illusion can get intense sometimes. The illusion can get intense sometimes. And all of the stuff that's going on the surface is never necessarily the truth of what's absolutely going on, what's absolutely taking place. There are things, yes, that are deeper down beneath the surface that need to rise to the surface so light can be shed on those things, and they can be brought out of darkness and into the light, and healing can take place, restoration can take place, yes. But in the great scheme of things, we're covered. We're covered. There's not anything that we experience that God doesn't know about. There isn't anything that we experience that there isn't already a plan of action in place to make sure that everything unfolds in divine right order. Okay? I want us to all understand that and be open to that. And just take a moment and just breathe in the reality and the awareness that in every moment, in every situation, we're covered. God's got us. We don't have to wallow in fear. And fear is the root of a lot of other unfortunate things, not only other emotions like hatred and animosity and things of that nature, but it's also the root of a lot of bad behaviors. So let's just take in a moment and breathe in the recognition and the reality that we are all taken care of, that it's all working out for the good, no matter what challenges might be taking place. in our individual experience or in our collective experience. It's all covered. It's all covered. Right now we're seeing through a glass darkly. We're not seeing things clearly as they actually are. The scripture tells us that there will be a time where the misperceptions will be wiped away. And we will see even as we are seen, we'll know even as we are known. We will have a much greater, clearer perspective of what it is that's really going on. Of what it is that's really going on. I really do believe that all things are working together for our good. Now, it doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it really sucks the way that it feels, quite frankly. But I really do believe that in the end, everything does end up working out one way or another. Everything does end up working out, right? Right? So whether that's in terms of conditions of health, or whether that's in terms of situations and other different life experiences, some of the things that we are most resistant to end up being some of the biggest blessings to us. Some of the things that we're afraid to let go of end up opening up new doors and new opportunities for something better to replace it. I want to encourage all of us on today to be open to that. I want to encourage us all to be open to the divine unfolding of our greatest and highest good. However that needs to show up, right? However that needs to show up, because we don't always see the whole picture. We don't always see the whole picture. And sometimes we get attached to a certain set of expectations, or sometimes we get attached to the outcome unfolding in the way that we want to see that unfold. Some of the times it doesn't unfold in the way that we think that we want to see it unfold. Sometimes it unfolds in a way that's a little different from that, but that nonetheless serves our highest and best good. There was a song out years ago. One of the Pace sisters recently passed. There was a song out by another one of the Pace sisters years ago. This was in the early 90s, I think. The song says, "If I were in control of my life, I think I would have worked things out much differently. There would be no hurt, no pain, no disappointment. Of all of these things, my life would be scot-free." But that just goes to show how little I know about leading, about controlling my life. For all of these things have worked together just to make the best of me. All of these things have worked together to make the best of me, right? Right? Some of our greatest gifts, some of our greatest blessings come in time of difficulty. Today, as I said earlier, January 20th, 2021. Well, it was around 20 years ago that I started this journey as far as a healer is concerned. I was really blessed and am continuously very thankful for that. I really appreciate that unfolding. Now, that would not have unfolded had I not allowed my girlfriend at the time, who I later would end up marrying and ultimately not staying with, had I not loaned her my laptop. Because while the laptop was in her possession, it stopped working. I had to go and use the computer at my mother's house, and needed to get some things made, some flyers made for a ministry that we were just starting at the time, and some other materials for ministry we were just starting at the time. And I mean, it seemed and felt like an inconvenience at the time to have to actually go and make this trip to my mother's house, a little ways from where I live, to use her computer. But it was there that I ultimately ended up being introduced to a person who would be my teacher. My life has been dramatically changed by that. It's been dramatically changed by that. That was in late 2000. That was in late 2000. And sometime after that, someone received a prophetic message from somebody that I really respect a lot. I had been blessed to be able to participate in the healing of a lot of people, across the United States and in other places of the world. And a lot of people experience medical miracles, and continually very thankful for God allowing me to step in and serve in that way, in that capacity. And in the midst of this prophetic message, if you will, I was presented with whether I would continue to engage in the healing work myself or train other people to do what I was doing. Okay. And the decision ultimately ended up being made to train other people. And so I started doing self-healing. I was doing self-healing for the purpose of developing and teaching a methodology that other people could use and implement to be able to play a profound role in their own healing and in the healing of others. So, I'd helped people who had tumors, who had been experiencing chronic pain, people who had broken bones, and even, bullet wound in the case of one person. I helped people who were going through surgery to not have to have pain medications because of the work that we did. A lot of people had a lot of really profound results, not to mention things that I experienced in my own life. So I started doing self-healing instead of to get rid of pain or sickness or disease, like I said, to develop and teach people a system, a methodology that can be used for healing of themselves and other people. Well, what was interesting about that time is, and now call this methodology Transcending the Matrix, been doing this for quite some time now. The context in which Transcending the Matrix was developed was a time where I didn't even have electricity in my home. Not having electricity meant I also didn't have a lot of distractions, right? That was the time that this methodology was actually being developed. In that difficulty, it was a tough time in many ways, but it ended up working out. It ended up working out quite well. And so we've been blessed to train other people, and their lives have been impacted. There have been so many people that other people who utilize this particular methodology have used to impact the lives of people all over the world. And it's such a blessing. It's such a blessing. And I want to remind all of us that no matter how bleak or how dark or how gloomy any particular moment might seem, that this too shall pass, that this too shall pass. There's always a rebalancing, just as today's date, the Palindrome in today's date and the next 9 days after today suggests that things are always being balanced out. Things are always being balanced out. And even if we feel like somehow along our life's journey, we might get sidetracked, things are always balancing out, bringing us back to center, just like in today's date, the Palindrome in today's date, bringing us back to center, bringing us back to where it is that we need to be. Hey there, Dulcie. Aloha to you. So glad to see you. Things are always coming together, bringing us back to where it is that we need to be. And whereas we might sometimes stray one direction or we might stray the other direction, and sometimes we might stray so much it seems like we've gotten completely out of the picture altogether. Still, somehow, things are ordered in such a way as to bring us back to exactly where it is that we need to be, exactly where it is that we were always intended to be in the first place. Divine order is at work. Divine order is at work. It always has been. It always will be. It always has been. And it always will be. One of the things that I, sometimes share in the context of healing is I don't work with sick people. I don't work with sick people in terms of healing. I work with well people, and I just get rid of the stuff that causes me to perceive them as something other than well, and that ultimately causes them to experience themselves as being something other than well. It's just a matter of revealing the wholeness. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on in this 3D world that we experience that seems like it's broken. It seems like something is bad. It seems like it's not how it's supposed to be. And I mean, I'll admit, not everything in this earth plane feels right to me. Not everything in this earth realm feels harmonious to me. And my triple Libra self, I love harmony. I don't care much for discord. I have a great appreciation for the peace and the harmony. And yet, there was a TTM student years ago. His name's Ahmed. I remember he said something while in the training. This was that he went through Transcending the Matrix training in November of 2003. And something that he said that I always appreciated. He always said there's just one of us on this planet, and anything else is part of somebody's dream. There's just one of us on this planet, and anything else is just part of somebody's dream. We're just imagining something other than the wholeness, but the wholeness is always there. And for all of us, all of the whatever chaos, whatever discord we see or experience, that is not discord in somebody else's world. That's discord in our world being outwardly projected. Discord in our own world being outwardly projected. In the book of Genesis, in the Bible, it says that God created human beings in the image and likeness of God. We're made of the same stuff that God's made of. Just as I often say that we're each a drop of water from the ocean of God, or a drop of water in the ocean of God. No drop of water is the whole ocean, but each drop of water contains all the properties of the ocean. And just as there's infinite creative power available within the Most High Creator of all that is, so too is that within us. As we tap into it, we experience that more fully. And so the chaos that we see around us, the problems and the brokenness we see in ourselves or in other people, it's all a projection of what is going on inside of us. And it may be a matter of some things that we might need to work out within ourselves in terms of how we're perceiving the world. We are powerful, powerful creators. We are powerful, powerful creators. And sometimes we focus, we're all also existing on multiple levels. We're not just physical, tactile beings. We're spiritual beings. We're intellectual beings. We're emotional beings. We exist on multiple levels of existence. simultaneously, right? It's just that this stuff is the densest form of us. And therefore, a lot of times, the part that we're most keenly aware of, the part that we most focus on. But it definitely by no means is even the majority of who we are. Okay, who we really are is spirit. Who we really are is spirit. Spirit that can never be destroyed, can never be harmed, that can never decay. At our essence, that's who and what we are is spirit. Okay, and yes, we descend into this earth realm and its series of life experiences in a way where we sometimes lose track of that. And we have these physical bodies that we're carrying around, and sometimes we align our consciousness to our physical bodies, and we even attach our identity, who we are, the substance of who we are, to this physical stuff. We attach the substance of who and what other people are to this physical stuff, And so, today there was a woman who was inaugurated as Vice President of the United States. First time that's ever happened. And a woman of color at that. It shouldn't be any big deal. It is a big deal because it's never happened before, but it shouldn't be any big deal because ultimately who and what we all are is spirit. But we get caught up in this stuff a lot. And yes, this is part of our human experience while we're wearing these earth suits, if you will. But it's such a small portion of who and what we really are. And if we limit the totality of our focus, or even the majority of our focus, to our physical being, to our physical selves, and even project that as far as other people are concerned as well, that's where we start creating a whole lot of problems and a whole lot of the challenges that we experience in our own individual lives, challenges that we manifest that other people end up experiencing, as challenges in their lives as well. But the reality is, underneath all of that, we're all made of the same stuff. We're all made of God stuff. We're all made of God stuff. And God stuff is always good. There's beauty in that. There's power in that. There's Dulce, if you're still here, you might appreciate this terminology. There's deliciousness in that. There's deliciousness in that. All these scriptures are just jumping out to me. I'm hearing the scripture, oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. There's a deliciousness and a juiciness and a just better than Campbell's soup goodness to the grace and the glory of God, and that same force of energy is within each and every one of us, dwelling on the inside of us. And the more we can tap into that, the more we can align with that, the more good we radiate in our lives, the more good we see being manifested in our lives, within us and all around us, the more good, the more blessing we see being magnified and being manifested out in the world. I believe, yes, Dulcie, much better than the Campbell's soup for sure. I believe that a part of the purpose of human life is to descend into the darkness and to reveal the presence of the light. Okay. Yes, there are a lot of things that seem like darkness, a lot of things that feel like darkness. But the reality is that we are called to be the light in the midst of whatever might seem like darkness. And sometimes we're called to bring light into the areas within us that are dwelling in darkness, the aspects of ourselves that remain yet unknown to us. You know, many years ago, I was studying the ancient mysteries, if you will, the mysteries of existence, and I guess I still am. And like in terms of the ancient Egyptian mystery system, for instance, it was discussed about the lower mysteries and the higher mysteries, or the lower mysteries and the greater mysteries. And what are those greater mysteries? Huh. Is there any greater mystery than when you look in the mirror, the one you see? Okay. The greatest mysteries in the universe are housed within you. Okay. And the more we can shed light on the mysteries that are within ourselves, including the areas that we don't allow ourselves to know because we feel ashamed about them, or we feel guilt or grief or regret or any of those things. When we allow the light to come into those places, when we allow the light to shine in those areas, then transformation takes place. Sometimes, as part of a spiritual journey, we like to be focused on, love and light all the time. But sometimes we need to do the work of really addressing our own shadows. We need to do the work of addressing our own shadows, and shadows are a function of physical existence. You don't get a shadow when you shine light on light. You get a shadow when you shine light on something physical. And what's behind the physical thing, where the light is not shining, is the shadow. Okay. And so, whereas we are spiritual beings having a human experience in this physical world of the third dimension, we also, I believe, have a beautiful opportunity to mature spiritually as a function of looking at those different areas that there is darkness, or those different shadow areas, those areas that we don't allow ourselves to know about ourselves, the areas where we're afraid to be vulnerable, period. We don't want anybody else to know about those areas. We don't even want to address them within ourselves. We're not willing to bare our naked souls even before God, to acknowledge that they're there, as if God doesn't know it already anyway, by the way. Okay. And so, yeah, it does take sometimes some courage to be able to go to that vulnerable space, to allow ourselves to really be seen, even by ourselves, not to mention by another. And it's very, very difficult for anyone to allow themselves to be seen by someone else if they're afraid to allow themselves to be seen by themselves. And yes, some of the times the stuff that you see might not look so good. There were some things that I had to look at within myself that I felt ashamed about, quite honestly. Some things that I had to look at within myself that didn't make me feel good about myself. I had to shine the light in those areas. There were feelings that I had that didn't feel like evolved types of feelings, but acting as if the feelings weren't there and just putting them away in a corner in some dark room in the secret recesses of the hidden chamber of my soul did not make those things go away. They just tucked them away and actually caused challenges that wouldn't have otherwise existed. And so it's important to reveal those hidden crevices, those secret chambers that we hide off from the world, from even ourselves. Shine light in those areas. Bring them to light. For it's in the process of bringing them to light that those things are balanced out. Just like the palindrome that we're experiencing today and for the next 9 days after today, where it's bringing things back into balance. Jennifer says, allowing yourself to be seen. And you says that doesn't work. What are you talking about doesn't work, Jennifer? I'd love to address that. I'm not sure what I might have been saying at the moment that you might have been referring to at the moment, but I'd really love to address that. Okay, so I I am on a spiritual journey. I'm consciously on a spiritual journey. You all are all on a spiritual journey, and really to be see, I used to do all these different spiritual exercises and things. I used to practice moving stuff with my mind and doing all of these other things. And I guess those things are all fine and good. But, one of the things I ended up realizing is that wasn't spiritual. Oh, Jennifer said, um, hiding and not wanting to be seen and tucking those parts of yourself away doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't. It feels very natural for us to do that. Because sometimes it feels very unnatural and unsafe to really look at some of those things. It didn't feel good for me to look at um, some areas that I had not acknowledged within myself. Some areas that shoot were in my blind spot that I didn't know of. I remember as a child I was calling myself being strong about some situations. Well, just because I didn't cry the stuff out at that time, that didn't mean that I was actually being strong about it. Um, it just meant that I was hiding a weakness. Actually, there's a greater strength in actually acknowledging the weakness and addressing the weakness. There's a strength in that, actually. My prayer is that we might all find ourselves courageous enough and strong enough to be vulnerable where we need to be. And in particular, with ourselves. It's important that we're actually learn to be vulnerable with ourselves before we try to be vulnerable with another. Because then, unless we do it in that fashion, I believe we kind of set ourselves up for disappointment and frustration, and subconsciously hold the expectation that the ones with whom we're vulnerable are actually going to dishonor our vulnerability, and that it's not ultimately going to be a safe space, because it's difficult sometimes for us to find ourselves able to be safe with another if we're not able to be safe within ourselves. Okay. Um, Jennifer says some things came up for you during the Transcending the Matrix training. By the way, and I know Dulcie, you shared that you have something going on tomorrow evening. Tomorrow is the third Thursday, so we will be. Oh gosh, I created this event some time ago, and I just realized that I never actually sent it out for tomorrow's TTM support session. So I want to mention that real quickly. Um, Jennifer says comparison to others and perfectionism, wanting to do it like another or wanting to do it perfectly. Yeah, I get that. I think you're referring to some of the things that came up for you during the training, Jennifer. Yeah. And the beauty is there's a gentleman by the name of George Fraser who I heard him say that an oak tree can dig its roots deep into the earth. It can stretch forth its branches and grow high up into the sky effortlessly, because it ain't trying to be a rose. It's just being its own self. It's not trying to be something else. It's not trying to be a version of itself that isn't authentic. And so it's able to do that effortlessly. Isn't that beautiful? I can't say that I was as wise as the oak tree. because I know that there have been many times in my own life where I personally made the horrendous mistake of trying to be a version of myself that I thought that others could accept or could appreciate, or that others wouldn't judge me for. Usually not necessarily others so much as a specific person in a different situation. And yeah, I made that mistake in romantic relationships a bunch of times. But the reality is that for all of us, there are folks who can love and appreciate you for who you actually are. That you don't have to try to mold and contort yourself into a different version of yourself to get somebody else's acceptance. This is something I am finally coming to learn after so long, and I can't say that I've completely mastered it experientially, but I've at least got it intellectually now. We'll see. I don't see not being single coming anytime soon. But at any rate, for all of us, it's just a matter of bringing things back into balance, no matter how far off we might get, to still come back to center, to still come back to that place of balance. I really love that it was brought to my attention today, January 20th, 2021, that today is a palindrome. Take the day, whatever way you look at it, from front to back or back from front, back to front, it's the same thing. It'll be the same thing tomorrow and every day through the 29th of this month. It'll be quite some time before anything like that happens again. It only happens on years that end with 11 or 21. Okay. But I think that it's significant. I think that it's very significant that that's happening at this particular juncture in time. Said several times that 2021 is a year of change. It's a year of transformation. It's a year where energies are shifting, where things are being rebalanced. We are at a time where we're just coming off of some really significant energy shifts that really went into place on the 21st of last month, the 21st of December, where portals are opening up in new realities, new opportunities for us, where energies are shifting as such. The old ways of being able to focus on yourself and your own good to the exclusion or the ignoring of the good of others just isn't going to work anymore. You know, I love, there's a definition that I heard of lust and of love, or explanation, lust as in contradistinction to love, that I really value and appreciate. A lot of times when we think of lust from a sexual context, that's just one of the ways that it can be applied, but it's certainly not all. But who was it that said it? His name is escaping me at the moment. But he said, lust seeks to benefit self at the expense of others. Love seeks to benefit others, you know, even if it's at one's own expense to a certain degree. Interesting, there is a sweet spot in that. That doesn't mean that you have to harm yourself being in a codependent kind of vibe. And that is a key distinction. But all of this going on in terms of within nations, within corporate entities, within households, all of this energy that is focused on what I'm going to get out of it doesn't matter to me what it costs you. My focus is on what I'm getting out of it. We're coming to a time where it's time out for that, okay? And where energies are aligning with the polar shifts taking place on the planet, the magnetics of the planet, we're moving towards 0 point, where the things that we're thinking about and feeling about are being magnetized to us much more quickly, are being made manifest much more quickly. This is a function of us coming into a place of spiritual maturity, right? When you were a little baby, you were taken care of, you were given the food to eat, the water to drink, you were provided all the things that you needed to be provided. Eventually, your parents were ready for you to get out the house, right? And it was necessary for you to start making decisions that were going to be the determining factors for the unfolding of your own life, to run your household as you see fit, to make the decisions for your life that you would ultimately end up living with. And so in a similar way, God has been doing the same with humanity. We've been babied to a very significant extent. To a very significant extent, we've been babied. We've been put in a playpen where we can get into some trouble, but the amount of trouble that we're able to get in is limited. We've always been protected, whether it seems like it or not, okay? We're called to a place now where we're required to be more responsible with how we're directing our energy, how we're focusing our awareness and our consciousness. We know that where attention goes, energy flows. Energy follows consciousness. Whatever it is that we're focusing our attention on, wherever it is that we are putting in our consciousness and we are focusing on, there's energy that's going there. We're at a point now where there's more energy going there. That isn't a bad thing. It just means that we have to be responsible, because we will see made manifest in our world, in our lives, in our life experience much more quickly the things that we're focusing on. Okay. Miracles, for instance, don't happen for those who need them. Miracles happen for those who know that they're going to happen, right? And by the way, like I talked about earlier, I used to years ago focus on like moving stuff with my mind and all that. Those things aren't miracles. Those things are not miracles. Those things are signs and wonders. The miracle is the changed heart. Even the healing, and the way that healing is considered, miraculous, for people to be able to experience the things, the changes in the states of their health that they experience. But the deeper miracle is the changed heart that takes place. In terms of the work that we do in transforming and transcending the matrix, is we're transforming our own awareness of the situation. And we're really allowing ourselves to perceive things differently, focused through love. We're purifying, our own hearts are being purified through the power of pure love. As a function of that, our perception is being purified through the power of love. And as a function of that, whoever it is that we're working with, their situation or their condition is being purified through the power of pure love. But what's ultimately going on is a matter of the heart, where there is purification taking place through love. As my grandfather would say, love. Through love. And that's that love that is really the essence of who we really are. All right? Not always a sentimental love, although it can be that. But a love that transcends boundaries of culture, gender, nationality, and all of those other different things that we use to separate ourselves. It transcends good decisions and bad decisions. It transcends us being in agreement or not being in agreement. It transcends all of that. It transcends all of that. I think of the words of the poet Khalil Gibran in his Of Love from the Prophet. Says that love is sufficient unto love. That's who we are. That's our essence. May that be what we're consciously and subconsciously all about. Allowing those hidden fears and hidden anxieties and hidden prejudices in whatever forms they may come up. Allow them to be addressed. Allow the light to be shed upon them so that those areas of darkness might be transformed into places of light. So that those areas of pain might be transformed into places of healing and restoration and renewed wholeness. Where the places of division and divisiveness might be transformed into places of unity and harmony and love. Grace and peace be to us all. I love you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you being here. Not only in the live, or if you're catching this on a follow-up broadcast, but on the planet. I'm glad that we're here at the same time on planet Earth. I know that if you're here watching this video, then there's a certain frame of mind that you're in. There's a certain resonance. Otherwise, you wouldn't be taking the time to view it, or you would have long since stopped viewing this. So there is, I'm certain, some kindredness of spirit if you are feeling guided to watch this and hear these words at this time. I appreciate you. And I'm glad that we're here together. May we support one another and love one another, have one another's backs, and be in union with one another so that more love and more light might encompass this planet, working together synergistically, where 1 + 1 + 1 doesn't equal 3, but it may equal 1,000 as we join our lights together, join our hearts together, for it to all grow, expand, and spread on planet Earth. God bless you. I love you. Have a great week.